Every sales call that you take has a hidden cost, and it is not because sales is bad, it is because it pulls your most scarce resources away from the strategic work that only you can do to scale your agency. Now, I've closed over $2 million in high ticket sales, and I've seen the same pattern everywhere where founders end up staying for too long in the sales seat and end up capping their business growth and their sales performance. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what you're giving up by staying in sales and why stepping out at the right time will allow your agency to finally grow without being limited by you. Let's start by laying the foundation, which is understanding the scarcity of founder resources. Your time, energy, and focus are the most limited resources in your business. And they cannot be increased or stored or recovered later. Once you've used them, they're done. And every single minute that you spend on execution is a minute that you are not spending on strategic decisions, right? You have this fixed daily budget that you can work with, and you need to spend it wisely. And growth will only occur by identifying what is actually scarce and protecting it. For example, if you used to have no calls in your calendar, you realize that that was the number one thing that you needed to be focusing on, hopefully. And then you focused on it, and then you fixed the problem, and bang, now you've got calls in your calendar. This is exactly the same, right? A distinction you need to be able to make is between founder work and work that can be delegated, right? Some work requires you. It requires your judgment. It requires context that only you have, an understanding of the market and the business as a whole that nobody else inside the business currently has. Most of the execution work in the business, though, can be documented and trained and handed off to somebody else. And sales calls are no exception, right? They are execution. They are not strategy. And if you're using your specific knowledge on work that can be delegated, that is going to be creating inefficiency inside your business as a whole and constraining the growth of it because of what you're focusing on. And the cost of this hidden cost, right, of taking sales calls is an opportunity cost, right, which is tied to the value of the growth work and strategic work that you didn't do. Sales produces linear results, right, tied to the time you spend. You hop on a couple calls, you close some deals, boom. You put some time in, you get some money back. Fantastic. But strategic decisions, right, working on the business creates those compounding returns over time, right? Focus on building the machine, building the systems. Doing the stuff that only you can do is the stuff that is going to actually scale your agency, right? And you're losing that compounding by focusing on sales, even though there's this instant reward from closing a deal and collecting some cash. Trust me when I tell you, I like it better than anybody, but it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to be focusing on if you're in this position. And delegation exists to maximize your return on attention, right? So you don't have to be spending your attention on the things that somebody else could be doing. Now, the way that this costs you and how this kind of shows up inside your agency, inside your business, is important decisions that you need to be making get delayed because you're busy executing on the sales side. You may also be executing in other areas, right? But you're busy executing on the sales side. Systems and processes, the working on the business part, stay undocumented and fragile and just weak, right? Marketing, ops, and fulfillment don't improve because you're not able to truly dedicate your attention to working on them and improving them and building the processes and systems that need to be in place in order to get the absolute best, efficiency out of all of it. And your growth slows down because the leverage isn't being built, and you actually become the bottleneck without even realizing it, which is crazy because obviously everybody wants to scale their business, right? Now, the way it shows up on the sales side, as opposed to just, focusing on the business as a whole, is sales actually suffers as well because it's only getting part of your focus. I do not know a single founder who is doing sales calls and handling other parts in their business, who is like calling through every single one of their leads, trying to book people back in, trying to reactivate the database, trying to follow up with everybody, after the call and, not miss anything. They just can't do it. There's too much going on. And that means that like all the follow-up and pipeline management becomes super inconsistent. And sales volume ends up being capped by your calendar as well. You may have other meetings, you should probably do. You can only take so many calls. You can only produce so many new deals in that case. So not only do you have a limited capacity as far as taking sales calls, not only are you neglecting your pre-call stuff, your post-call stuff, your reactivation stuff, the pipeline stuff, it's just you spread too thin, and it just becomes an issue for you, and you don't realize how much it's costing you, because sales makes you money, so it seems, right? And you're just not optimizing it at all, because it's not your full-time role, and this turns into your CAC being high. It's simple maths, right? If you spend X amount on acquiring leads and getting calls in your calendar, and you are not getting the most out of every single lead, your cost per closed client, your customer acquisition cost, is going to rise, because you are getting less out of a fixed quantity of units of leads, of calls, or whatever, right? That's a problem. Whereas if you've got somebody who's focused on it all the time, they're going to get the most out of every single lead that comes through, because they're going to follow all the processes, hopefully to a T, right? And that's going to lower your CAC, because it's going to mean that, you're just getting more juice squeezing more juice out of whatever fruits they are harvesting, if we want to call them that, right? Anyway, the reason why sales is so hard to let go of is because it feels safe. It directly creates revenue in your agency, right? You hop on a call, close a deal, feel good. I get it, right? But and it has that immediate feedback, right, that makes it feel productive. But the thing is, if you're not willing to let go of that lever, even though it feels risky, you're just going to be stuck in the position that we've described so far, where you're focusing on this execution work. And if you've got a belief that, like, oh, I have to be involved, because nobody else is able to do it like you, and nobody has the context that you do, and it's scary hiring a new salesperson, and what if they do this, and I'm gonna have to pay them too much, and it's gonna eat into all my margins and stuff. You just get emotional about it, and that overrides the economic logic, which is a surefire recipe to fail in business, or fail, not scale. There you go. Not scale, fail. Anyway, let's talk about the double win of delegation, though, because this is great, because it's not just the sales, it's both the sales and the actual business as a whole that benefit from this, because once you've delegated sales, it's going to free your attention to focus on this high leverage work that we've been talking about so far, right? But then also sales is going to get full ownership instead of like leftover time, which means that the opportunity cost on both sides is going to drop at the same time. So you're going to be getting more out of all the sales stuff and more out of everything that you're focusing on the business simultaneously, which is going to have this massive, growth effect on your agency that you should start seeing kick in within like 30, 60, maybe even 90 days, because you're able, there's obviously like lagging, metrics and stuff that take time, deals take time to close and stuff, so forth. It takes time to ramp people up. But yeah, your work becomes leveraged, and it's no longer quite as time bound. Obviously, all work is time bound, but it's all about leverage, right? And the business as a whole can make progress in parallel, and that's going to result in the business growing, right? Your revenue growing without you necessarily increasing your workload massively. If you go from spending 20 hours a week on sales or 15 hours a week on sales to 2 hours a week where you're just managing somebody, then, you've got all that free time that's freed up, and yet the business is scaling more because you've got someone who's dedicated to actually doing the role full time and actually, smashing it. Your sales volume is going to increase. You're going to close more deals for the same amount of leads, which means your CAC's going to go down as well, and you're going to collect more cash up front and be more cash flow positive, and just generally able to invest more in your marketing and other parts of the business too that help it grow. You're going to be able to make decisions more quickly. You're going to have more clarity. You're going to have less going on inside your head. The systems are going to start improving like on a kind of continuous basis instead of it being reactive when things go wrong. And sales is no longer going to depend on your presence, right? Which may be good news, maybe bad news. So yeah, final points. Sales isn't the problem, right? It's misallocated attention, and you're not going to scale by doing more necessarily. You're going to scale by doing less of the wrong work, right? Which inevitably is going to mean you're doing more proportionally of the right stuff, the high leverage work that you need to be doing if you want to scale. And growth is going to accelerate once you stop being the constraint here, right? If you've been paying attention so far, you should be thinking, yeah, this is true. This is facts. This is not my opinion. This is straight facts. And if you're looking for help with any of this, especially when it comes to building the systems inside your business that will allow you to delegate the sales role and actually hiring somebody, managing that person, training them, onboarding them, etc., all that fun stuff, then you can book a call with me. We can have a conversation. I will tell you exactly what I do, how it works. And if I genuinely believe I can help you, I will share my information with you. And if I don't think I can help, then I will tell you straight. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.